Hello everybody, today we are going to be, well it's not just today but this week, we will be finishing off our Unit 4 unit and we will be talking about toddlers and preschoolers. This lesson today will include both, so it might be a little bit of a longer lesson to listen to, but I wanted us to get through Unit 4 as quick as possible. So toddlers and preschoolers are what will be covered in this particular lesson, and we will just kind of go through that. And then you will take a quiz on toddlers and preschoolers in Canvas, and that will be what you will have to do this week. So we will start off with toddlers, and we'll talk about them a lot. Toddlers are a very, very interesting breed. They can be hilarious, and they can also be really sweet and loving, and then they can also flip on a dime and be terrorists. So we are going to talk about them. This picture right here is an example. This is Shane, my nephew, when he was, I don't even think he was 2 yet, when this picture was taken. And this is the picture that you would see on social media, where you would post saying, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for my children. They're so sweet and so loving. But in reality, the amount of stress, yelling, tears, frustration that went into getting this picture taken was high. This picture was taken in, I believe, July or August. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was 102 degrees. And it was the worst experience of my life. And Shane was an absolute terrorist. He was so evil, that entire shoot of pictures. This was the only picture we got of him that was good. And, oh gosh, when I look at this picture, all I can think about is how awful that day was. So toddlers, they're fun. Okay, here's Shane Boy again when he was learning how to walk. He's super cute. So, physical characteristics and skills of a toddler. Walking shows the beginning of the toddler stage when they start to be able to walk. Toddlers generally walk and run with their feet further apart than adults, and that's why they have that cute little waddle. And then the stair challenge. It is a difficult task to learn when the child goes downstairs alternating feet. So they usually, for a long time, they can only go 1 foot at a time. And so they take 1 step at a time, 1 foot, second foot, next foot, second foot, that kind of thing. And so it's difficult for them. And then they usually have to have something to hold on to. So it's helpful if they have a railing. And then also, don't ever let your toddler go down the stairs by themselves. Hold their hand, help them out. They don't really... I would say kids are not really efficient at stairs until they're almost 3 or more. So I would be very careful with that. Teach them to go down on their bellies when they're like 1.5. And then when they start to walk better, you can start to help them by holding their hand, having a railing, that kind of stuff. A toddler is mobile and curious, and they definitely want to be independent. So create a safe environment for them to explore in. They learn about the world around them by experimenting and by exploring. So it's very important that your house is baby safe and safe for them to do such things, because no matter what, a toddler is going to get injured. 100%. Your toddler will have bumps and bruises, and for the unlucky few, stitches and ER visits and all these things, because they are so curious and they are so active and they are so independent. So make your environment as safe as possible so that you may avoid the ER visits and the stitches. Let's talk about toddler growth. This is little Miss Presley May when she was getting more comfortable with riding horses. She's been around horses her entire life. And so she started riding horses when she was about 1, maybe 1.5. And she would obviously ride with her dad on the back of the saddle as well. And then as she got a little bit older, she would ride with a helmet. And then older and more experienced, she would be able to go on herself. This picture right here, she's not riding that horse by herself. The horse is being led with a lead rope by her dad, and she's just riding along with it. So growth tends to slow down as the child gets older, but there's a rapid growth in the arms and legs. Their arms and legs get longer. They do have an increased ability in their gross motor skills. They learn to do activities like tricycles and big wheels and riding bikes and those kinds of things. They are getting better at their fine motor skills as well. They like to do activities like puzzles and coloring. Most toddlers can build with blocks but struggle to use scissors and markers. Emma, who's 2.5, is getting really good with markers, and she just barely learned how to use scissors. She can't cut anything out appropriately, but she's learning how the scissor motion works and how to use it on paper. Toys should not have any small parts. Choking hazards are very real and they are scary, and children die each year from choking. So make sure your toys are appropriate for their age, because toddlers are going to put them in their mouth. Okay, and then toddlers start to learn self-help skills, and it's tasks the child can do on their own, like feeding themselves and dressing themselves. Toddlers should be allowed to start feeding themselves simple finger foods. Okay, let's talk about toddler nutrition. Here's little Shane boy again. Good nutrition is the cornerstone for healthy child development. A child's nutrition affects the health, development, and function of their whole body, including their brain, heart, eyes, and immune system. So make sure you're giving them foods that have a lot of nutrients in them, and they have lots of vitamins and minerals, and they are healthy for the child so they can develop properly. That's not to say you can never give your child like chips or cookies, like go for it. But make sure when you're making them meals, you are attempting to make their meals pretty nutritious. What a child eats will have a big influence on their mood, behavior, thoughts, and emotions. Because a toddler's growth is slowing down, they will eat less than they did in the first year. And this is very true. A lot of parents kind of panic or freak out or they worry when they see how little their toddler eats. But in reality, toddlers need very, very, very little food. You will see, like, I make the tiniest little bowl of like macaroni and cheese for Emma, and she'll have like 3 bites and she's good. And that's fine for her. Like that's what she needs to eat. And then, but like my 7-year-old niece Presley, I'll give her a big old bowl of mac and cheese. She'll eat the entire thing and ask for seconds. So they do, children will never starve themselves. And if they are hungry, they will eat. So don't like stress and force feed food on them. If they are full, they'll stop eating. If they want more food, they'll keep eating. So simple as that. Oh, guys, then we were going to do this really fun activity, and you were going to be set up on, I was going to have them set up at tables and all this stuff, and you guys were going to make toddler snacks, and I bought all these groceries, and they were going to be set up, and you were going to make these popular toddler snacks to talk about nutrition, and it was going to be really fun, and you were going to be able to eat all the snacks, and it was going to be great. But we can't do that because of this stupid online learning. So, if you would like to try making these toddler snacks, go for it. They're actually pretty tasty, and you could give you ideas of what kind of food you can give toddlers. So a couple of things. We were going to do ants on a log, and that's just, you can do this 2 different ways. You can do celery, peanut butter, and raisins, or celery, cream cheese, and raisins, depending on what your preference is. In class, we did the cream cheese just because people who have peanut allergies, but peanut butter is a really popular choice too. Okay, then we were going to make butterfly snack bags. Super cute idea. You have grapes in one side, goldfish in the other side. It's pinched together with a clothespin, and then you put googly eyes and antennas on them. Butterfly snack bags. The reason this one is super appealing to kids is it creates a fun craft game for them. And then it also is fun because it is super colorful and it creates a character. The more colorful the food is, the more appetizing it is to children. And then the more fun you make the food, the more appetizing it is to children as well. And then the next one we were going to make was called lunchbox KABOBS. And you were going to put, you put turkey, cheese, and like little cherry tomatoes on a stick, and you eat that. This one's good because it provides dairy, protein, and vegetables. Well, I guess, sorry, cherry tomatoes is a fruit. And it's fun because it lets the kids stick them on a kebab, and then they get to eat it off the kebab, which kids find really fun. It's a little bit different way than just eating out of a bowl or eating with a fork or spoon. This is fun for them. And so if you ever are trying to think of like, childhood snacks, think of foods that are colorful, nutritious, and provide a fun like activity for them, like ants on a log. They look at like it's fun, it's a game, it creates, like I said, like a character out of it. Butterfly snack bags, lunchbox KABOBS, and there are several, by the way, like toddler snacks you can make. I just picked 3. So let's talk about toilet training. It's a very, very big deal for toddlers. It's the very first thing they really start to learn that they have complete control over, and it is an exhausting process. We are currently attempting to potty train Emma, and it's been funny. She's really good at going pee in the toilet, but she has not quite figured out poop yet. And we've been trying to potty train her for, let's see, I want to say maybe 2 to 3 months now, and she has never successfully made poo-poo in the potty. She does go pee in the potty a lot though, so it is definitely a process. Toilet training begins when the child is emotionally and physically ready. The age range between this is usually 2 to 3 years old, depending on your child specifically and if you feel like they are ready to start being potty trained. You want to treat accidents like a matter of fact. There's no pressure or feelings of shame and doubt. If a child has an accident, you do not shame them at all. Like if you say, oh no, like you had an accident, let's go and clean that up. Next time, buddy, let's try and make it in the potty. Like you never shame them for messing in their pants because this is a brand new skill they're learning. For the last 24 to 36 months of their life, they fully knew that if they needed to go to the bathroom, they just went in their diaper and then the mom or dad would change it, and that was super easy. This is now they're learning like complete control over this new skill that they are getting acquainted with. And so you want to make sure you're very loving and very patient, and you do not shame them at all, because if a child feels shame, then it kind of reverts them back and they no longer want to progress because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. So make sure that you treat accidents like, oh, you had an accident. It happened. Let's move forward and we're going to keep trying. If the child fights toilet training or is struggling still after a few weeks, stop. Do not force it. It just means they're not ready yet. And you can wait about 3 weeks before trying the training again. Like I said, it is a process to potty train. So don't feel like you're doing something wrong, or if it's not working the way that you envisioned it would working. It takes a long time for a child to master. And so if they're fighting it and they're struggling and they're not doing well, you can take breaks from it. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, social and emotional characteristics of toddlers. FYI, let's have a shout out to our classmate, JC Workman, for taking this photo of me and my sweet niece, Emma. So social and emotional characteristics of toddlers. Giving hugs and telling a child that they are loved is the best way to show them loved. I tell my nieces and nephews I love them probably 30 times a day. Like, it is constant. I tell them I love them so many times. And they'll sometimes say they love me too. They'll sometimes say I hate you or go away. And it's just kind of funny. Emma's in this stage right now where you say, Emma, I love you. And she says, thank you. And then he'll say, like, say it back. And she goes, I love you. And that's how she says I love you. And so, or me and Emma are in this stage too where I tell her she's really pretty. And she goes, no, you're really pretty. And I say, no, you're really pretty. And it's this fun, like, little back and forth we do. So always show the children you love them by the way you speak to them. Toddlers are social, and learning to share is one of the first social skills that they learn. This one also takes a long time for them to master. They are very egocentric, those little children are. They are all about them, and they are the only thing they think about. And as they start to grow and mature, they start to realize that there are other people around and other children, and then they start to worry about the feelings of other children. So when your toddler does not quite want to share yet, it does not mean that they're mean and evil and they need to be punished. They are learning. You want to be patient with a child as they are learning, because it's like they're trying to develop an entire human being and a soul and a personality, and it takes time. So be patient with them as they are learning these processes. They do have very short attention spans, and they are not patient, and they do struggle to play cooperatively with others. This just depends on the child. Emma is very, very good with other kids. She loves to play with her cousins, and she loves to play with other kids. And she's now at the point too where if we're walking outside and she sees like another child around her age, she goes, "Look, mommy, friends." And she gets really excited about having friends. So she does really well. But like I said, she doesn't do well with sharing at all. And so they can play and they can run around together and they can tease each other. But as far as like sharing, usually screaming, fighting, kicking, and hitting all take place in the process of Emma learning how to share. And Shane and Presley, they're all terrible at it. Okay, so this is one of my favorite photos of Emma. It's funny because she was so upset, but we were having a fun time. Like, we were on a train at a zoo. And I was like, Emma, look at me. And I was like, I want to take a picture of you. And she looked up and gave me that face. So this is one of my favorite photos of her because I think it's absolutely hilarious. But, so like I said, they have a very, very severe case of egocentrism. They are very self-centered. It is the tendency to perceive, interpret, and understand the world in one's own terms. Toddlers assume that other people think and feel as they do in this stage. If you ask them to perform any activity, they will do it in their own style. They have, like Emma has this dance that she does. She has like a potty dance, a happy dance, a funny dance, a silly dance, and it is so cute to see the way that she dances. Negativism. This is doing the opposite of what others ask to be done. When you ask her to come and she runs away from you, that's an example of this. If you ask her to hand you what she has in her hand and she throws it at the wall and shatters it, that's an example of negativism. If you say, Emma, come here, and she yells, no, which she does, that's an example of negativism as well. Toddlers are developing a strong sense of being a separate little person at this stage, and they begin to realize that they too have ideas, wants, and new abilities. So they are very stubborn, they are very independent, and they have their own ideas, and you are not about to get in their way. And so it's a really fun power struggle when you have a toddler. Parents also recognize all the new skills their child is exhibiting, and it begins to set limits. When a parent begins to set limits, it's really fun because limits do not sit very well in the mind of a toddler. They don't like being limited, and they don't like being told what they can and can't do. And so this starts the no battle, okay? I'm going to portray you what the no battle looks like with Emma, and it's going to get loud and it's going to get shrill, just so you know. I go, Emma, bring that here. No. Emma, will you please bring that here? No! Emma, listen to Missa. No! I just strained my voice a little bit. I didn't even do it near as loud as she gets. She gets like crazy loud and crazy shrill. And it's a really fun process we go through. Child is very stubborn. When the child does what they want and or what you ask them to do in their own way, in their own time. This is their way of showing a desire for control and independence. Totally normal. Do not fight your child on absolutely everything they do. Pick your battles, okay? Because like I said, they are learning to be a whole new person. Okay, let's talk about social and emotional characteristics of toddlers. They do have what are called temper tantrums. It is a release of violent anger or frustration exhibited by screaming, kicking, and crying. Once again, there are going to be days where you do not handle these very well, and there are going to be days where you handle them better than others. But remember, the child, they do not know how to react to situations like adults do. Like, so say it as an example, you as a teenager, if you're really mad at something, you have a series of ways that you like to deal with it. You either leave them on red, which by the way, I think is a ridiculous way of trying to show people you're mad. Just throwing that out there. You get really quiet. You like to be alone, or you get mad and you have a violent outburst, okay? Or you cry, okay? There are all these different ways that you handle these feelings that you have. A child does not understand. You as a teenager, let's go back. If you are mad at somebody, you're not going to throw yourself on the floor, kick your feet, punch your fists, scream, yell, cry, because you as a teenager, you have learned that that's not acceptable behavior. Okay, that's not behavior that's going to make you a successful person in society. However, a toddler has not learned that yet. The only way they know how to process angry feelings is by screaming, crying, punching their hands on the floor, kicking their legs, throwing themselves down. That's the only way that they know how to communicate. Now, you obviously don't want to reward this behavior because it's not a reward. You don't want them to you don't want to like make them feel like, "Oh, it's okay, you're acting like this." But at the same time, you want to be very patient with them. Okay? You want to allow them to have their temper tantrum, but do not award their temper tantrum. Okay? I hope that makes sense. A child does feel jealousy. They may not understand that the caregiver has enough love for everybody. This definitely comes into play when you have multiple children, which brings in sibling rivalry. This is a competition between siblings for parents' attention and affection, and this lasts up until you die. Erickson's autonomy versus shame and doubt is the stage they're in. Remember that autonomy means independence, and they want to be able to do things for themselves. All right, cognitive development of toddlers. Toddlers are in the end of their sensory motor stage, and they are advancing into the pre-operational stage. That's Jean Piaget's, if you remember. The pre-operational stage is ages 2 to 7. And children think in terms of their own activities and what they perceive now. Children learn through imaginative play and continue to view the world in an egocentric manner. They begin to identify symbols and that symbols have meaning. Children begin to understand terms that are concrete, such as a ball, truck, and dog, but they struggle with abstract terms such as respect, love, and etc. So let's go through that. Concrete means things they can see, things they can touch, things they can manipulate, and things that they can play with. That's concrete, okay? And so truck, ball, dog, dolly, all those different things that they can actually see, feel, touch, play with, that kind of stuff. Abstract terms, these are things that they feel, okay, internally. So love, respect, forgiveness, trust, those kind of things. And so children definitely understand concrete terms a lot easier because they can feel them, touch them, play with them. Whereas abstract terms, they have to learn how to process those feelings. So it takes a little bit longer for them to gain those. All right, guys, look how cute this picture is of Emma. Like, seriously, this child, like, come on. You can say it. I know she's the cutest child in the entire world. You want to encourage language development by modeling correct speech. Actually, we went through this, I believe, a couple months ago when we were in the classroom. I was talking to you about how you don't ever want to make a child feel stupid for the way they pronounce a word because, like I said, they're learning how to talk. However, you don't want to teach them that is the correct word, if that makes sense, because you want them to eventually learn the right word. Like, as an example, I told you my nephew Shane, he used to call cereal Roro. Okay. And so every single morning he would wake up and say, I want Roro. And we would say, like, oh, okay, you want some cereal? I'll pour you some cereal. And then you never made them feel stupid. Like, ha ha ha, that's the wrong word. You're an idiot. No, you don't ever do that. Don't worry. His older sister takes care of that. Okay. But, oh my gosh, guys, listen to this. So one time, I can't remember what it was, but Shane did something silly or dumb or whatever. I don't know. And he was probably like 3 at the time. And Presley, she's 6, okay, so she's getting real sassy, and it's Presley's his older sister. And he did something, and Presley goes, Shane, you are not going to college. So, don't worry. Their siblings take it on themselves to make fun of them. You as grown-ups, you make sure they feel loved and make them feel smart. Like, as an example, I always tell Emma I love her, even though she says, I lush you. Okay, I never tell her I lush her, I tell her I love her, and she will eventually model that correct speech. Reading to a toddler is important for language and cognitive development. We've talked about that several times. And nouns are often used as first words. Okay, types and roles of play for toddlers. This is a picture of Presley and Emma at the beach. Emma would have been just barely, she wasn't even 2 yet at this point. She was almost 2. And Presley was, let's see, she was 5. No, Presley just turned 6 in this picture. So, a toddler still engages in solitary and onlooker play. Now, Emma is obsessed with Presley. She loves her. She definitely looks up to her as a role model, and she always wants to play with her. And Presley's actually super good with Emma. She is very excited to play with her and see her too. So Presley's very good with her. That's not always the case with older kids. Sometimes they don't like to play with little children, and that can be hard for little kids. Toddlers begin parallel play. This is where they play next to another child, but not with them. As an example, Presley and Emma are both building their own sandcastles there. They're playing by each other, but they're not playing necessarily with each other. Okay, let's finish this off with preschoolers. Okay, here's a little Presley May when she was in preschool. She's actually like in, oh shoot. I think she's going into she'll be going into 2nd grade this next year. So this is when she was in preschool, her little class picture. Okay, here is a picture of Presley and her cousin Adeline. And so let's talk about some physical characteristics and skills of a preschooler. Physical growth slows down greatly, but size varies due to individual growth patterns. And they are very active and very energetic. Kids don't stop. They never stop. They always, 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 always are going constantly, constantly, constantly. Skills are practiced by participating in the action again and again. Children get better at doing things the more they practice that particular skill. Their bodies do become straighter and more slimmer, and that protruding stomach, their little like baby flab, goes away, and it starts to flatten. They start to get skinny and they lose their little tummy. The neck becomes longer, and the legs lengthen and grow straighter and more firm. Okay, so I wanted to show you this picture of, this is Presley and her cousins, Adeline and Kaysen. And this is, I showed them rock climbing because I thought that was a perfect example of them developing their gross motor skills. And then also, Presley just recently, over the last couple of years, has learned to, like the ABCs, and learned how to write. And that was her learning how to write her name. So that's her motor skills being developed. I mean, her fine motor skills being developed. Preschoolers are able to practice and refine both gross and fine motor skills. 4-year-olds are more able and willing to share with others. I'd say that's true, but shoot, Presley's terrible at sharing. And she's 6, so. The preschooler is gaining stronger inner self-control and self-management of emotions, and they begin to relate to others' emotions. Like, as an example, Presley, when she was 3 years old, she would have these things called Presley meltdowns. They would literally last like 3 hours long, and she would be having a full-on meltdown in her room. We'd have to lock her in her room so she would like just try to calm down. And she would, oh my gosh, there was at one point where she used to bite her arms so that her parents would come let her out because she was saying, owie, owie, I'm hurting. And they'd come and see, why is she hurt? Like, what is she doing? And they were finding out that she was biting herself. So kids are crazy. Then, as she got older, she got better. I don't think she's had a meltdown in like 3 years, okay? Yes, she does still get upset, and she cries, and she screams, and she fights, and she has tantrums sometimes. But she never goes into her full-on Presley meltdown she used to when she was younger. They are peer-oriented, and they realize that having friends outside their family is fun. They start to make friends at school. Definitely. Preschool, kindergarten, first grade, they have their school friends, and they go and they play with each other, and they enjoy each other's company, and they make up games together, and they definitely have people that they consider they love to play with. Preschool children can learn specific social skills in a preschool environment. Children thrive when they are in school because they learn that they learn about taking turns, sitting still for longer periods of time, raising hands, improving manners. They learn so much when they get into school, and they thrive and they love having a schedule. Okay, the preschoolers have moved on to Erik Erikson's third stage, which is initiative versus guilt. And initiative is the decision and motivation to accomplish more tasks than expected or asked. The desire to accomplish tasks is based on the child's motivation and self-worth. Play is a child's work. Children are initiating play during this stage. Children who are encouraged, allowed, and supported in these efforts develop self-confidence. Repeated discouragement or punishment may lead to feelings of guilt, inferiority, and inadequacy. You obviously have to discipline your children. You can't let them just run wild because, oh, they're developing, let them be who they are. You still have to like discipline them and teach them right from wrong. But you never want to tear them down. You never want to make them feel stupid or make them feel embarrassed or make them feel like they're worthless. You want to teach and discipline with love and understanding and patience. Okay, cognitive development of a preschooler. Preschoolers are in Piaget's pre-operational stage of cognitive development. They form attitudes about learning that can last a lifetime. Teach them that learning is fun, that learning is enjoyable. It opens up their mind and the world to so many other possibilities. Make them crave learning. Children learn from concrete, which means hands-on and tangible evidence. And children are inquisitive and ask many questions because they want to understand the world around them. They do get to the point where they are in the why stage. No matter what you say, it's why? Why? And you have to continue to try and figure out how to ask them. Don't ever yell at a kid or get mad at them for saying why. They're just learning, and they're asking questions because they want to know what's going on. Preschoolers learn by participation and involvement in everyday experiences. Okay, let's go back to the egocentrism with preschoolers. They still think in terms of their own activities and their own perceptions and continue to struggle with abstract terms. They do continue to learn through make-believe play, and they are learning that objects and words can be symbols and they represent an idea. They have a limited view on ideas because they are based on the child's perception. All right, let's talk about cognitive development terms. Okay, these are different things that they learn. You have conservation. Conservation means that it's when even though one property of an object changes, the other property remains the same. So a ball of Play-Doh can be smashed into a pancake. It still is the same even though it looks different. Does that make sense? So Play-Doh is still Play-Doh. If you roll it out and you make a shape, it's still Play-Doh. So that means that's what conservation means. Or liquid is the same amount, even though it's poured into glass in differently shaped glasses. If I have 1 cup of liquid in a and I pour it into a very, really small child's cup, and I have another cup of liquid and I pour it into a really big cup, it's going to make it look like there's way more liquid in the small cup. However, it's the exact same amount of liquid. That's conservation. Okay, classification. This one's pretty easy. Classification is putting objects into sets based on common traits. So the example right there would be healthy foods versus unhealthy foods, and they had a lot of options, and they could eat, and they placed them in the categories they belonged. Cats and dogs, toy blocks and toy trucks, those types of things. Okay, then there is sorting. Sorting is placing classified objects into smaller groups based on how they are alike or different. So if you go back to classification, sorting is the next phase. So say, let's look at healthy foods as an example. So the next stage would be sorting, and I would tell the child, okay, find all of the red healthy foods and put them together. And so they would sort all the healthy foods that are red into a different pile. That's sorting. So they place classified objects into smaller groups based on how they are alike or different. Examples could be sorting cats by color, or sorting blocks by size or shape, etc. So like as an example, have you guys ever played the game Guess Who? Presley is very into that game right now. She loves playing that game with me. That's a really good example of sorting, because I will ask her the very first question you usually ask when you're playing Guess Who is, okay, is the person that you drew a girl or a boy? Or sorry, you can only ask yes or no questions. And so I'll say, is your person a girl? And Presley will say yes. And then so I knock down all the boy pictures on the game. Okay. And the same thing she asked me. She goes, is your person a girl? And I say no. So she knocks down all the girl people. Okay. That's an example of sorting. And then she'll ask me, does your person have blonde hair? And I'll say yes. So then she knocks down every single player that is not blonde. That's a perfect example of sorting, is playing Guess Who with a preschooler. Okay, then we have seriation. This is putting objects in order based on size, weight, etc. You can line crayons up in order from shortest to longest. Or you can line up shapes from small to big, okay? Or you can put in things from heavy to light, that kind of stuff, okay? Then there is transformation. Transformation is the change of an object from one state to another. Like an example is a popcorn kernel turning to popcorn, or bread dough turning to bread, Jello powder turning to Jello, or the aging of a person is an example of transformation. Also, I don't know if you guys have ever made homemade ice cream in a bag. That's a perfect example, because they put in a bunch of liquid into a bag, and then they put that bag into another bag full of ice and salt, and they shake it, and eventually turns to ice cream. So making ice cream with a child is a perfect example of showing them transformation. Okay, and then there is reversal. Reversal is what can be done can also be undone. Okay, so building a sandcastle and then destroying that sandcastle. A sandcastle can be built and knocked down. A jacket can be zipped and unzipped. And then a really important skill they learned from reversal is a mistake can be made and then be fixed. Okay, understanding between fantasy and reality. Preschoolers can differentiate between reality and fantasy, or make-believe. The imaginary life of kids is powerful and sways their perceptions of the real world until they master adult rationality and logic. It takes a long time, okay? Having imaginary friends is common, normal, and shows good social and emotional skills. So if your 5-year-old tells you they have an imaginary friend, it's totally normal. It's fine. Don't freak out. If your 16-year-old tells you they have an imaginary friend, maybe you have something you can be concerned about. If the child does not play with real friends, then this can be a concern. Like if their imaginary friend takes over completely their entire life, and it's the only thing they think about and the only thing they talk about and the only thing they'll play with, then maybe you need to talk to your child about that being a possible issue. However, if they still have friends, they still socialize, they still play games with their siblings, that kind of stuff, but they have an imaginary friend who joins them, totally normal. Okay, so then we have types and roles of play for preschoolers. You have cooperative play. This is where children play and interact with one another. Okay, they start to actually play with each other when they're in preschool. They will build a sandcastle together. They'll play store together. They like to act out a play, so on and so forth. Okay, how to teach moral behavior to a preschooler. Preschoolers are beginning to understand the reasons behind the rules. Okay, toddlers don't. They may know there are rules and things they can't do, but they don't understand why. Preschoolers start to learn that there are reasons behind the rules, and they start to develop a conscience, okay, which guides their behavior and helps them to make proper judgments. They start to learn the difference between right or wrong, and they start to also have a moral code. The caregiver has a responsibility to teach and help a child develop moral behavior. They can be a good role model of it, and they set clear standards of behavior. They respond to inappropriate behavior, and they talk about them in private and continue to show love despite the misbehavior. Discipline with love. Love and logic, guys. That's how you do it. Okay, and then this was an activity we were going to do, but we can no longer do. If you would like to do this with any children around you that are in your own family, since we are practicing social distancing, you're welcome to come up with activities that portray any of the, let's go back, reversal, the transformation, the seriation, the sorting, so on and so forth. If you'd like to come up with games to play with children in your family that portray those, you're more than welcome to. We were going to do it with the preschool kids, but since we are out of school, we cannot do that. And so that finishes out our lesson and our unit. So as soon as you're done listening to this video, go over and take the quiz about toddlers and preschoolers, and we will move on to Unit 5 next week.